Hey guys, Scrubber1000000 here, and we're back at it again with another Melty type Lumina video. We're finally back from the US finals, and I was able to clutch it out. The sticks over there for the price, as you all saw. Great time, and yeah, we got a new patch, we got new characters, all that good stuff. Of course, I wouldn't make videos on guides on those characters, they're just so new, right? There's stuff being figured out right now, so we'll wait a little bit more before we talk about the new DLC. For now, I want to talk about something that I promised you all that I will bring back, and that is going to be our shield guide, or how to deal with shield, how you punish the shield follow-ups, how you know which is punishable, how you punish them. We're going to go over that stuff, because a lot of things that I saw, even at the finals, at the top level in the US, is that there's still some misconceptions and some things that a couple players are doing wrong when dealing with shield, and I really want to help, especially now that a lot of people are jumping back into the game. Want to help them out understanding shield, and it is a mechanic that's a little bit annoying, I'm not gonna lie, but there are ways to fight it. It can be a little bit less annoying than you think, so we're gonna right into that. But as per usual, guys, if you're liking the content, please remember to drop your like, subscribe if you haven't. We're cutting really close, guys. We're cutting really close. We're almost at 3,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So we're gonna pump it up. We're gonna pump up some videos to wrap up the year. I just need y'all's support. There's gonna be the complete guide series coming back, and the Street Fighter 6 beta is going out. So I expect to record some matches, upload those as well. So there's gonna be some activity to wrap up the year. So hopefully we're able to hit that milestone. Thank you all for the support, and let's get started with the video. So first, let's talk about A-Shield. So A-Shield got a massive rework this last big patch in August, which makes it the de facto offensive punisher. And before it used to be BC, we'll talk a little bit of why things changed. But for now, let's just go over some pointers of why you should need to pay attention when dealing with Shield A. First of all, Shield A is weak to safe jumps. I'll just show you in a minute. As you see, it is punishable on block. I use an A-frame button there. That is a new buff that we got in this last patch that we just got with the winter DLC. So you need an A-frame button to be able to punish the A follow-ups on safe jumps or on block, pretty much. And you can even use A buttons due to the pushback nerf that Shield A just got. As you saw, I could even use my 2A there. Before you couldn't do that. So great quality of life buff makes it a little bit easier if you want to close rounds with a Punisher. Another important thing, it makes the delay A follow-up, which was a big deal on Shield RPS, actually have some risk to it, which is a great thing. Assuming, you time it correctly. You block, very important. But as you saw there, I was able to just hit with a B button and, just hold back. If they want to delay A, they're gonna get punished, right? So delay A is a good option still, but it has some risk attached to it, so very important to add. This is just very important. Shield A's can be punished. Please start punishing those. Don't let people get away with those if you block them, okay? A very important change that A-Shield got that makes it very safe is the fact that you can jump cancel it after clashing. So that means that in this situation, which is pretty common, right? When the defender uses Shield A, and the person in offense uses BC to be safe, which we'll talk about BC and why it's a get out of jail free card. And you should probably do it if you don't want to deal with the shield interaction. Well, if this happens, you should always jump. If you're the person that did Shield A, always jump. And I'll tell you why you should always jump. Okay? So the situation here is pretty common, and I'll explain this from the side of the person in offense. So how do you deal when the opponent jumps at you? Does this, right? It's like, oh my god, I have to block? I lose my turn, right? Yes and no, that really depends on your character. So some characters can actually air dash after the clash, right? If you're nice enough, you can actually get out of that situation. That mostly happens with characters that have a forward air dash, so Love, Roa, for example, Edmond Dantes. But yeah, lap this option out for yourself. See if your character can actually get away with that. So that means you don't have to deal with any follow-ups. You can go back to neutral. So you're spending pretty much 50 moon gauge to get back to neutral. Okay, does that make sense? I hope it does. I know this is like a very new interaction that came up with the latest patch. A lot of people are still not comfortable with it, right? So most people just decide to hold block here, or some people even get hit, like they don't know, right? Like they try to press a button back and like get counter hit. It's like you can't really go in the offense here. You basically give up your turn, but you can go back to the neutral and be pretty safe about it. One thing that's really important and that I mentioned was how you should always jump shield A, and the reason is pretty simple. It's actually punishable on shield BC by some characters in the mid screen, most notably Mario, and pretty much everyone in the corner. So be very aware of that. Always jump cancel the shield A, otherwise this can happen to you. So like I alluded to earlier, one way to get out the entire shield situation, if you don't want to roll dice, you can always do BC here. So that gets you out of that situation entirely. You don't have to guess anymore. Of course, it comes at a price of having your moon gauge, but that's going to be something I'm going to talk about next on why doing BC like this is pretty much insurance policy. You don't want to be the person doing it first. You don't want to be using BC offensively, in my opinion, except of some examples that we'll cover later in this video. But yeah, using it this way makes it so you're the most consistent, and you can do it without having to deal with much of the shield interactions, and you can get a couple punishes, as we're gonna see later on. So keep this in mind. At any point, if you don't feel comfortable guessing anymore on am I gonna reshield, what am I gonna do, you can always just BC out, be done with it. Okay, now is when the video is gonna turn a little bit more interesting, probably more abstract, because we're gonna talk about Shield B. And Shield B is probably the jankiest, the worst, the most annoying, in my opinion, follow-up. And it's for various reasons. It's just the way it behaves. It really depends on a lot of factors. Distance, your moon gauge, if you did it delayed or not, the height, everything. So not sure how much I can show for examples here on myself or here at home, but I will try my best to explain the most important cases. Okay, let's get started. So the most important thing is that B shield is there to crush the reshield mostly. So let's say if I were to do this and shield back, I'm gonna get hit. So what happens is there's a big distinction between whether you hold shield or you tap shield. As you see, tap shield doesn't give you the counter hit status. Very important here, you mostly want to reshield and hold if you're expecting a delayed follow-up. But as we talk, delayed follow-ups can be a little risky. So in my opinion, when you want to reshield, it should be safer just to tap shield back. The thing about that is that whether or not you get counter hit by tap shield depends on your moon gauge. So your moon gauge that dictates the recovery of your shield. As you're gonna see this example, I am under 50% moon. I'm gonna tap shield and I get fataled. So this is a very important situation to pay attention to. Once you are below 50 moon gauge, first of all, you cannot BC out of the situation. So it's pretty much a guess you have to take, yes or yes. But if you do take to reshield, it has big consequences. One of the reasons why moon gauge is such an important resource right now, and you should definitely not just use moon skills without thinking about it. It can get you killed, as you saw in this example. B shield becomes a threat once you're low moon. So let's go over some other situations about shield B, and especially how to punish it. So let's go over some of the basic ways to punish B shield. So first of all, if you use a fast recovering move, let's say like a 5 or a 2-8, you can actually 3C him. So at high level, you're not gonna see that often. You're always gonna see something like this. So, yep, you can actually chicken block the B shield and punish. So you can get very, very big damage in those, which makes it so projectiles are pretty good. So let's say if you're trying to B shield here, yeah, you can get punished. So you can't really ignore neutral, quote unquote. You can't just teleport away and try to deal with that. They're gonna actually punish in many ways. So these are a little bit harder, so it might take me a couple tries. Let's see. Yeah, so you can impul Moondraft through that, and you can also BC through it. If I can do it. It's a little bit tight on the timing. There we go. So, as you see, there are many ways that you can punish B-Shield as a zoner and as a rushdown character. Okay, so B-Shield is good, again, to crush the reshields, but outside of that, it has a lot of risk built into it. We're gonna go over some other specific ones. Okay, so again, B-Shield, don't be afraid to not use it. You have to use it sometimes, but be aware of the risk rewards involved. So we already talked about what happens when the opponent decides to shield A versus BC. So, you know, there's the whole clash situation. What happens when they B shield? They don't have a fun time, especially in the corner. As you see, you can just block it and get a good punish. So, yep, very scary to do B shield in the corner. Should only be used when the opponent has below 50% moon gauge. My words, dude, you are gonna have a bad time. Make sure that you're looking at the opponent's moon gauge and assess the situation. If they don't have access to BC, they can't outright just kill you for that, right? So, very important that you read the board, look at the resources in play. Just a little side note here. You can actually punish the B teleport after you BC mid-screen for some characters. Not everyone gets access to this punish. Go to the lab and figure it out for you. So this is just an example. This is actually kind of hard to do, but let's see if I can actually pull it off. Look at me. Look at me, talking myself up. But yeah, that's actually a true punish. So for some characters, it is actually very risky just to do B teleport when the opponent has BC, like I talked earlier. Be very mindful about that, okay? So B shield in the air might be the worst follow-up when it comes to offense. It has some usages, as you will see. The teleport is much faster in the air than the ground version. That's very good versus zoners actually, because most of them can't really react to that, right? So the example I showed where I was able to react to the teleport and punish it, that's much harder when shielding air attacks. So keep that in mind. However, this one is super easy to make with. As you see, like very easy to make with. Just like the smallest drift forward is gonna make it with. So be very mindful about that. When shielding actual direct attacks, I don't recommend it outside of, you know, like a hard read that you know that they have to reshield or they're gonna like lose. Otherwise, lots of bad things can happen to you. Let's see if I can get it. Oh, look at me. So yeah, be very mindful about that situation. So it's time we close the shield trifecta by talking about the shield BC. So this shield is the one that gives you the most damage, and it's the one that is usually said to be the safest. At least that used to be true on the last patch. Why am I saying that you shouldn't use this one offensively? Well, let's go over the pluses first, because it does have some redeeming qualities over the other ones. First of all, this is the one that does beat most safe jumps in this game. If you remember correctly, the other safe jump that I did lost when I did Shield A, so my Shield A got punished. Shield BC actually punishes this one. There are a couple safe jumps that BC does not beat, most notably the ones that end up being a little bit further, like for example Bluff. So there's still some exceptions to the rule, but for the most part, Shield BC does fight safe jumps pretty well. So let's go over the really important things about the Shield BC. So first of all, there's actual counter to this. So when you shield a Shield BC, you do your own BC, and as you can see there's actual punish. So yes, if you manage to reshield a BC, encounter with your BC shield, that is a guaranteed punish. They cannot do anything about it. That is very, very important. A lot of players are still not doing this. They can't leave this out, because there's no reason you should be gambling. There's no reason you should not punish these ones if you're already committed to the reshield. Does that make sense? So another important one, once you shield from the air especially, so going back to the safe jump scenario, so let's say I safe jump the opponent and I get shielded BC, I can actually punish it, assuming, you know, I'm good at the game. With shield A, you don't even need to spend BC when you are doing it from the air, which is pretty nice. So yeah, like I said, there are some cases, like I said, this is the way you can contest safe jumps, but it's not without a risk, right? So the risk here is, if you try to BC the safe jump and you get reshielded, bye-bye to you. You're getting exploded. So it's a measured risk. So there are some mind games there with regarding empty shield. We are gonna briefly touch those. I don't really want to talk about a lot about the shield no follow-up, because this is mostly gonna be just like a pickup for punishes. I mostly wanna make sure that you are able to understand what punish you should be doing based on what the opponent does, or based on what you did, right? So this case, very important. Be mindful that if you reshield a BC, you can get it. You can get him back with a BC of your own, right? So pretty important. Please take note of that. So why am I saying, hey, you should probably not use your BC offensively, but use it defensively? Well, let's put this scenario, right? So let's say you're the one that gets shielded and you want to just get out, then you would use your BC, right? What happens if you want to reshield? So, like I said, this. What happens if you're the player who started the shield, right? So, you committed to the A shield and you got shielded. You can use your BC, which is half your moon gauge. You were gonna spend that if you were gonna use BC, right? So you spend half your moon gauge and you're out of the situation yourself. So this case is very good for, let's say, in the corner. So if you BC after getting shielded back, boom, you're out of the corner, right? It costs you way more than you probably expected, but it's the best scenario, at least, right? Given what happened. Instead, if you would have done BC here, just like precipitated, right? And said, okay, whatever, I want to get out of the corner, I'm gonna use BC. Then you get punished. So what I'm trying to say is, it's better to contest with the A shield, because in the case that you get counterplay with a reshield, you have an escape. You have an easy ticket out of the situation that guarantees you no punish. You're not gonna get punished. While if you were to commit to the BC itself, you could have gotten punished. I hope that it makes a little bit of sense. I know it's like a little bit of an advanced concept, just in this whole shield mind game that we play. But it's as simple as, hey, you can commit, if you want to be offensive, you can use A, and you can have BC as an insurance policy, right? So I'm mostly doing BC as a way to get out of a bad situation. I don't want to use BC as a way to push offense purely because it can get punished, purely because it can get counterplayed. So that's the mentality at least I use, and I know a couple players in top level do that too. So definitely start looking into that. Just think about it as BC is just your way out of your get out of jail free, right? So I just want to point that out before we wrap the video with some air shield interactions, which are probably really hard to demonstrate. It's gonna be a little bit abstract, but I'll try my best to explain it. Make sure to ask any questions in the comments. I'll try my best. And if there needs to be a follow-up, we'll do it, you know? Like, I think this is a very important topic and a very difficult mechanic that a lot of players don't ever seem to fully grasp or fully feel comfortable playing around, right? The last situation I really want to discuss is remember the situation of the safe jump? So we already talked about if you shield a safe jump and you can choose to go for BC to beat their safe jump. But what happens if they reshield is that you can get punished. So if you don't do anything, what happens? Well, this is a very interesting situation. It opens for a mini strike throw for the most part. Now this is probably the weirdest thing to explain because it really depends on height, but versus air dash pressure and versus some safe jumps when you reshield. So let's say the person in the air reshields. This situation plays out quite a bit, right? So I land, and it's a strike throw, right? So if I try to throw, I get hit. What happens if they try to throw me? I try to mash, I get countered, right? So, interesting situation that plays out here, but it's not like a punish per se, right? Like I can do stuff here, right? It's not a guarantee. I'm just trying to explain you, like, when you shield nothing and they reshield, it's not that they are afraid. They have to hold like a mini mix-up, like a mini strike throw here. Oh, I mistimed it because I suck at this game. Yo, setting up this dummy is funky like that. But yeah, basically like they're not out of that. They're not out of there right now, right? If you were to mash her, like they would explode. So yeah, just a heads up. Like when they ever like shield you, let me see if I can. When they ever reshield, when you shield an aerial attack and they reshield, you can choose just to not do anything and then take the situation that's in your favor. So it's gonna be like a strike throw, and nothing is guaranteed, but it is a start to getting your turn back. So none of this is guaranteed. You can choose to go for the immediate damage on the BC, trying to punish, for example, like a safe jump attempt. Remember, doing the shield A is a little risky just because if they're low to the ground, they're gonna be able to block, right? If they're able to block it, then you're gonna get punished for attempting that. So my thoughts are, you could try A if it's not a safe jump. If it's a safe jump, if you really want to gamble BC. And if you don't want to gamble with your life, but you want to take offense, then shield nothing. Because shield nothing at least gives you this part of pressure. You can sneak in a throw, you can do any other thing, right? So, just explaining you the situation, so I hope it makes a little bit more sense. Because I know it's something that not many players still feel comfortable about, just dealing with shields. But yeah, like, you can say, for the most part, that's kind of how the situation plays out. Again, this really depends on height, right? Like if I get shielded from here, that the situation is completely different. You have way more frame advantage of the player shielding, so you can do other things. But I'm just trying to explain like the first layer of the situation, so more people are aware of it, just because it's a big part of the game right now. So yep, just want to give your guys a heads up on how the situation works, how to read it at high level. When you see a stream or something that you don't see people punishing things, sometimes they just can't punish it, you know, like they just take the offense. So yeah, just wanted to explain the situation. Hopefully it makes sense. Like again, make sure to ask questions, make sure to try this in training mode. The way I did this is, so I slowed the game to 30% and I set the dummy to shield. And once I shield, I made a save state and I recorded a dummy doing what I want, right? So I made a dummy doing this, and I made a dummy doing this. Pretty simple. Again, play around. The training mode options thankfully are really good, so we can create situations like this. So yeah, go ahead and experiment. So that about does it for this shield guide. My goal again was to teach you all about the strengths and weaknesses of each of the follow-ups and some of the decisions at high level, right? Like, why do you see certain players react in certain ways? How to use BC correctly, how to deal after getting shielded, you know, that type of things. I want you guys to start seeing how the shield play in the game and how do people get around it, how do you play around it. And it's more than just guessing, and as you saw, even in the case now, it's like a small guess, but if you don't want to guess, you BC out, right? Like I'm out. I don't want to deal with you. I'm out. Plus, shield of course is a little bit weaker thanks to the new patch in August. So yeah, it's definitely less intrusive than before. And thankfully, due to the rework on shield, it's a little bit more streamlined than before. If you go to my previous shield guide, I was talking about like super specific punishes, like things that were super tight. Definitely it's more streamlined now, so definitely easier to pick up and understand. So again, if you like this content, please leave me a like. Tell me if it helped you. Tell me what type of other types of videos you want to see. I am wrapping up the complete guide series. Thankfully, the character I was going to talk about next only got buffs that were pretty nasty, so pretty easy to implement into my script. So that should be done pretty quickly. Just waiting for some clips. And yeah, we're gonna keep this grind to 3,000 subscribers. We have less than a month, but I am very optimistic. So thank you all for the support, and I hope you all have a good one.